Me.
Hey, we are live. What is happening, everybody? I wasn't ready that time. I looked away and the little spinny thing was gone, and I looked up and it just says live over here in the corner. So I'm assuming we are live. So I have my Mac elevated now on a little bit of a stand to get some more gear on my desktop here, and it's kind of throwing my image. It's shooting down at me. Anyway, what's happening, Kevin? You're looking very festive.
It is our last Two Bros Wrestling show of the glorious year that has been
Uh,
2020.
this year,
So
my goodness.
this year is coming to a close, and we're taking the next couple of weeks off, folks. So you are joining the Two Bros Wrestling show, Doug and Kevin. He forgot to introduce himself. He was
Oh,
so
hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Doug. That's Kevin. I'm just thrown off. It's like it needs to be down there, but that's too low, and then you can see a lot of my bat wall like that, but then it's too high, and
you give him a different angle, and we've thrown him completely off.
I'm done. I'm out of here. You do the show yourself.
Doug, what's going on? It is the final Two Bros Wrestling show of the year. We're taking the holidays off, and we're going to talk TLC, the last pay per view of the year. We're going to preview it for the folks in our main event tonight. But first,
News? Is there news? Oh, hold on, banners. Opening that. There we go. It's like a
there we
press.
go. We do have news, and we'll get to that first here in our opening bell. So this is the news for December 13th. For the past week, Doug, the biggest news of the week has to be, without a doubt, the reports that Vince McMahon threw quite the fit this week over the in-ring work of particular wrestlers, in particular, some of the larger big men on the roster, and as a result has sent those individuals back to the Performance Center for twice weekly training. So this training class is apparently being taught by WWE producer Adam Pearce, who a lot of folks are now recognizing more and more as an on-air talent, and Raw superstar Drew Gulak, obviously two really accomplished wrestlers. But the interesting part of this story is who all was sent, and most of those that were sent you can't really argue with.
There's one we can both argue with, I'm sure.
And I will save him for last in case folks
All
haven't
right.
heard. It's Otis Dabo Kato. I think that's how you pronounce it. But the guy who started to get some fame on Raw Underground before that was mercifully cut short. The Mace from Retribution, and then you have AJ Styles' bodyguard Omos, who has not been seen in ring yet on NXT or any programming. So, I'm sure he's getting work in just because he's green and still learning the business. But then there is one name that is not like the other. Doug, you want to address that one?
It is friend of the show, Keith Lee. I mean, come on.
Keith Lee.
I'm not sure if Vince McMahon is just confused and said all these big guys need to go back and learn how to wrestle. He's a big guy. I'm sure he can't wrestle. Vince must not be watching his own product. I'm not sure what he's watching, but and I totally get that everybody should continue to work their craft and work to improve. Just because you reached the pinnacle of your profession does not mean it's time to go. Okay, yeah, I'm here. I can just chill now.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's the case with Keith Lee, and all the others you mentioned are a little green, or big guys that are a little green. But yeah, Keith Lee, come on, man.
Keith Lee is generally considered to be one of the best workers in the business, regardless of size. And there are actually some folks that are reporting the fact that Keith Lee kind of got swept up baby in bathwater kind of situation where because of his size, he's going back with some of the others, and not really anything personal against him. But considering how hard he was pushed when he first got there, he just had his 24 debut on the WWE Network. All the spotlight he's getting, it is very odd that he is amongst these folks that are considered in need of some retraining. So hopefully we have that as a short-term thing, and when it comes to Keith especially, and that he understands, or that Vince understands, that Keith might not be like the other individuals that he sent, and that there's no hard feelings, and this isn't some sort of arbitrary punishment, because obviously it would not be deserved.
Yeah, I don't get it. I'm not sure what he's seeing, but yeah, I don't know. Whatever.
We'll keep an eye on that. In other news, NXT India is reportedly set to debut not just in 2021, but as soon as January. So here in a few weeks, as we turn the calendar on this year, NXT India may join its brethren in the United States edition of NXT, as well as NXT UK, and become the third brand flying under that NXT yellow and black banner. Much like they did with NXT UK, it is expected that NXT India is going to be comprised of mostly homegrown talent. They will have their own unique roster. It will not be comprised of other superstars that we're already familiar with, per se, on any of the other brands. And they are supposedly set to have a linear TV deal in India, one of the, obviously a huge population there as far as a potential audience, but they'll also have support from the WWE network. So for those diehards that watch any and everything that is wrestling, it's just one more wrestling show, Doug, getting ready to join the landscape.
I can't. Does this mean Great Khali is going to be back on TV? Can I get some Tiger Ali Singh and Great Khali? Can I get those individuals on my TV again?
Considering the way they incorporated some wrestlers from the British Isles who have a history in British wrestling as behind the scenes agents, as on-air talent, commissioners, the like, it wouldn't surprise me if someone who is so associated with WWE from India, like a Tiger Ali Singh or, Great Khali. I don't know what Khali's doing now. Maybe he went back to being a policeman. I'm not really sure. But yeah, a whole other brand, and obviously NXT UK, despite the pandemic, putting kind of a halt to the momentum they have going, they run their own pay-per-views now. They have a really strong on-air presence with a very unique roster, some of whom occasionally switch back and forth to the American NXT brand and vice versa. So this just gives another possibility for men and women to work, and for us to get exposed to some new talent that we might not otherwise, as well as a different style of wrestling. The NXT UK brand is very unique in many of the things they're doing as far as their presentation goes. So I'm kind of eager for this, just out of curiosity.
Yeah, I think any wrestling is good. It's just like science fiction. Any bad sci-fi is better than no sci-fi. But I think I may be at a breaking point with wrestling and oversaturation of great wrestling. I mean, because we're coming up on the end of the year, which means we're coming up on the beginning of the year. So there's a tiny little Tokyo Dome event that's going to take place in a couple of weeks. So to kick off the wrestling year,
yes.
I don't know if I can keep up.
Well, Doug, that will dovetail nicely into my next news item for things that you need to keep up on that you probably haven't, and for more oversaturation. So Triple Mania. Triple Mania, folks, is the WrestleMania of Mexico, essentially. AAA Worldwide, which is the largest lucha libre corporation in the world, has their annual event, normally in Mexico City, normally in front of a large crowd. Obviously, as with everything in the world right now, the pandemic has changed those plans. So last night they presented their largest show of the year, and I bring it up only because it was a pandemic year and they had to do things differently without a crowd. They decided to air it for free on YouTube. So the entire Triple Mania event, if you want to get a taste of Mexican style AAA Lucha Libre wrestling, is streaming right now. It was live last night. No spoilers, partially not because I don't want to spoil it for you, but I haven't finished it yet. It's like a 3.5-hour show. You know how these mega shows are. But it does also contain a lot of talent that have either wrestled in the United States or United States-based talent that folks will recognize, like Blue Demon Jr., L.A. Park. The Lucha Bros wrestled last night. Kenny Omega wrestled last night. And so all of this is available for free on YouTube. And Doug, and the crossover kind of stuff here, I have to look more into this. But I'm right now to a match where Apparently there is some sort of Marvel tie-in, like some Marvel endorsed. Yes, almost every wrestler in the ring is working some sort of superhero gimmick, and the Marvel logo actually flashed beforehand. Obviously, I don't speak Spanish, but the announcers are talking about Marvel and all this. And I'm like, okay, is there some sort of tie-in I need to know about? Because if I need to know about it, I have to tell Doug. Doug, there's perhaps a Marvel wrestling crossover.
That's awesome. I know like Rey Mysterio is really big on using on going to the ring as different superheroes in his ring attire, but this sounds more like a complete tie-in because I haven't not had a chance to catch up with Triple Mania. I wanted to see Kenny wrestle because I'm such an AEW mark and see how the belt collector, if the belt collector gets to keep that belt of his.
There was one dude in this match, and it was like, oh. I can't remember the name, Purple something or another. But anyway, he comes in and he's rocking like there's an Infinity Stone looking belt he's wearing.
He's probably Kronos, right? Okay.
Well, the thing is, like the dude that was going Spider-Man was, called Arachnid, and then there was a guy that was something Americano, but it was obvious that he had a Captain America kind of look. It was like it was adjacent to at first I thought, okay, are the laws that lax in Mexico that we don't have to worry about the copyrights? They're not worried about it. And then flashes the Marvel thing and they start talking Marvel. And I'm like, maybe this is an endorsement of some sort. It is a big promotion, but definitely worth the watch. I've enjoyed it thus far, even though it's a very different kind of presentation. And actually, I'll let me dovetail on, again, something else, not on a tangent, but it is something related to a news item we had a few weeks back about the new wrestling promotion that was starting up on Crackle. And that is out there now. And for those of you that miss Lucha Underground or fans of Lucha Underground, for goodness sake, you have to go and check out this this show on Crackle, this wrestling program that they have on Crackle, where it is Lucha Wrestling as superheroes. I mean, there are like islands that Rudos come from and islands that Technicos come from. And then there's this place you get banished if you have so many losses, but you can buy yourself out of amnesia or something like that to appease the god that made the islands by paying them in lucha bucks. I mean, it is and you earn lucha bucks with your victories. I mean, it is insane. It is absolutely insane in hilarious ways. In the very first episode,
that's amazing.
It's one of those things that if you want a unique presentation of pro wrestling, you can't get more unique. In the very beginning, the first episode, a child from the audience actually helped the guy win, and I don't mean by handing him something. I mean the kid comes in and does moves on the kid was obviously a plant, even though he's like 6 years old, and he's up there doing flips and flops, and it's just it's very interesting and worth a watch. 10 episodes, you can binge the whole thing. Obviously, it was produced at a time pre-coronavirus because there's an audience, except when they go in the between segments. That's where they enter the mythical world of where they talk about the gods and the islands that were created, and there is a whole backstory that is worth your time to invest in, folks. And a couple more quick news items here. SmackDown this week emanated from a new location. So I know we're in this pandemic era of no touring, but since the Thunderdome concept debuted, it has been taking place. All of WWE programming outside of NXT has been taking place from an arena in Orlando. That arena is needed now for basketball, so they had to find a new home, and that started on SmackDown on Friday night, which means the TLC show we're getting ready to preview here is also going to emanate from Tropicana Field in Tampa, which is an outside baseball stadium. So it'll be probably a little more like your Daily's Place feel as far as, the performers and stuff being outside. It probably opens up for them the possibility that they could maybe start bringing in some fans to augment what they have, since they're in a large outdoor facility in Florida. The only thing is that if you watch Friday night, if you didn't know that they changed locations because it's such a tight set and the way you would never know that it was anywhere else because Thunderdome looks like the Thunderdome. Maybe they had a few more screens, but I mean, you never saw the rest of what is a large open ballpark. But at the very least, that ballpark won't be needed until at best, March or April, depending on what Major League Baseball does this year. So it does give some leeway to WWE for expanding on the Thunderdome concept, changing the Thunderdome concept, being able to have events where you might be able to do some different things just by the amount of space they're going to have in a large baseball stadium. So we'll see. Stay tuned. And then I will end by saying congratulations to Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins, two WWE superstars who this week became the man became the mom officially, Doug.
Does that mean she'll return at Royal Rumble now?
Wouldn't surprise me. As competitive as Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch is, this child may now be a surprise entrance in Royal Rumble. You might want to put some money there.
Start a tag team with Dominic Mysterio.
They just get younger all the time when you're our age, Doug.
That is so true.
But that's all I have for the news this week. If you want to, let's hit the main event.
There we go. Queued up and ready. Main event.
Main event time, 2020. We hardly knew ye. It is time to end our wrestling calendar. Before, as Doug says, we turn the page on that wrestling calendar with the New Japan mega shows coming up. But TLC is the final pay-per-view of WWE's calendar year. It is next Sunday night, airing on the WWE Network starting at 7 o'clock. And we're going to go down the matches. And if you are, want to chime in and let us know who you think is going to win, what matches you're interested in, which ones you're not, we would love to have your feedback on this. Doug, let's talk a couple of matches that haven't been announced thus far, but are strongly hinted at.
That's cool. I'm looking at the roster here, or the list of matches, and I'm only seeing 6 matches right now.
You know that they'll have to add a couple. So here's a few that might be, happening. The Street Profits, obviously they're the champions of the tag division over on Raw. They don't have challengers yet, but it's very much looking like you might see a Dolph Ziggler, Robert Roode versus Street Profits match. And likewise, if you go over to the Blue Brand and SmackDown, Big E and Sami Zayn fighting for Sami's Intercontinental belt seems like a pretty good lock as well. Do either of those matches do anything for you, Doug?
Man, I love Sammy. and Big E's great. So, Rude. Did you say Rude and Ziggler? Is that who they're throwing at the Street Profits?
It's looking that way. They've been sort of beefing a little bit on Raw.
There's 4 great workers right there. The Street Profits are great. Rude and Ziggler, I think separate are excellent, but have got, I don't know, they're just in like mid-card limbo. And all the guys involved, great, but I really don't care about either one of these matches. Other than I'm sure I'll be entertained, but as far as investment in any kind of storyline, there's nothing really there for me. I'll call it Street Profits if it happens, and I'm going to say Big E finally gets his push and goes over Sammy, though. If these matches do happen. If
these matches happen, I'm in a total agreement. Like you, all 4 workers in that tag match would be great, and so it'll be a good match. But for whatever reasons, Dolph Ziggler, fell from grace a long time ago, and Robert Roode never took off after the NXT brand. Talented as those guys are, there's no reason they should beat the Street Profits, and they won't. Right. On the other hand, as great as it's been with Sammy as champ, I can also see that Big E has some things in his future that they're looking towards. It might be time to make that switch. I'm more interested in that match just because I think the outcome is more in doubt. And that there might be, obviously a good contest there where you might, wonder about the finish. But as far as either of those matches being added, I'd say it's a good possibility. But let's get into the things that we know for certain are happening and predict some of those, Doug. The women's division over on Raw, the tag team, well, I guess it's the Raw and SmackDown tag team champion. Oh, yeah. Go back and forth, but you got Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler, and they're going up against Asuka and Lana as the challengers. Who do you think's coming out on this one?
I would say that Jackson Baszler will retain, although I can see some goofy booking here to put Asuka and Lana over by Lana doing something and finally getting her giving her comeuppance to Nia Jax. But I don't know if it's time for that payoff yet. But they've surely been building for it for a long time. But I'm going to go with the champs here and say Baszler and Jax.
I think that something happens here to further some sort of personal feud back in like a singles. This is going to end at some point in a singles feud between Lana and Nia Jax. I actually think that this might be a good chance to separate Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler, who were kind of thrown together as a tag team, even though they've been doing real well. I actually kind of like the way that they have some, chemistry, Mean Girls chemistry together. But I actually think that Asuka, who hasn't really done anything since she dropped the women's championship, and Lana, who seems like they're actually doing something sort of interesting with her. I think that they might try to continue to do something with her by putting the belts on her and Asuka in this. So I'm going the other way.
All right.
Comment on here.
I see it.
I don't think Hacksaw's in this match. I'm trying to even remember. Hacksaw is still alive, isn't he?
Yes, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I had a question there for a minute. We've lost so many in the last couple of years, but yeah, Hacksaw is one of the few that was in Wrestler's House.
I believe he had a brush with cancer, but is still alive.
That's right. So let's move on to what do you say? The New Day defending the Raw Tag Team Championships. The New Day are going to be taking on the Hurt Business. Cedric Alexander, and Shelton Benjamin are the ones from the Hurt Business that'll be getting this shot. And I think this will be a good match. I don't think that the Hurt Business is going to take the titles from New Day. It wouldn't surprise me if they did. But I think that New Day retains here in what could be a really good match considering all four men involved.
That's what I was going to say. This is one of those matches where I sometimes I call them regardless of who actually gets the pin. We're the folks who actually win in a match like this because you've got again four great workers here that are going to deliver on the entertainment factor. But I got to agree with you. It's New Day for the win here.
And if you want to move on then, since we're in easy agreement that one's easy to call, which probably means we got it wrong.
Yeah.
SmackDown Women's Championship. We got the boss, Sasha Banks, in her first real post-championship feud, now that she's putting the Bayley thing behind her, is taking on Carmella. Carmella had been off TV for quite some time, months away actually, and kind of come back in a sort of repackaged version of herself after a series of vignettes. And I always love when they bring talent back via vignettes, so I'm all about that kind of character building. Never really been, nothing really against her, but never really been huge on Carmella. I do like the way that they've set this match up. I don't think that Sasha loses, which is good because honestly, I think that as much as anything, Sasha winning the belt is never a surprise at this stage in her career. I think for most of us who watch, Sasha retaining the belt and having a championship reign is this thing we've not seen. And I hope that this is a start of giving her credible opponents for her to beat that, builds her up to something bigger at, say a Mania or something along those lines.
Yeah, I think that's really key here. Yeah, because what you said there about giving her credible opponents now, because there is a history, historically speaking, the boss does not keep the belt once she gets it. But I think they're going to build towards something much larger. I'm hoping anyway that they build towards something much larger and give her credible opponents to build credibility for her. And you've got that in a returning former champ here, a repackaged former champ at that. But I'm hoping that WWE is doing some long-term storytelling here and some booking and doesn't just hot shot a belt change here. But I will never bet against the boss. I'm going to go with that.
This is one we're on agreement on. But let me ask you this, Doug: Do you see Carmella as a credible opponent? Do you think of her as a credible challenger?
I think so because, like I said, we're looking at a former champion, and they've put a lot of time and energy to build her back up, and with the vignettes and everything. So they're making her a big deal, even if I think Sasha's only credible opponent is Bailey and maybe Asuka, on the roster. But yeah, I think from a general, like, let's say the casual viewer looking in, they're going, oh yeah, I remember her. She won the Money in the Bank or something like that, and she was champion for a while. So yeah, these two could probably go, and I'm sure they will go and go well. But
Yeah, I agree. That's the way I kind of look at it. Carmella might not be, on the tier that Sasha is, but as far as there's a big difference between Carmella being the challenger here and Dolph and Bobby Roode being the challengers if that were to happen in that Street Profits match, like we were saying earlier. So I think this is a good match for Sasha Banks. Where they go though, ultimately with the long-term booking, something big. You thinking like a Bianca Belair down the road, or are you thinking like a Mania return of like a Ronda Rousey coming in and winning a women's Royal Rumble or something?
I'm thinking Flair, a returning Flair at some point. So
it's true. She's been gone for a while, and that they have a historic feud. They've never had that one-on-one match though at the grandest stage of them all, and Charlotte would be a nice surprise return for a women's Royal Rumble, no doubt. Bray Wyatt versus Randy Orton. So this is one of those feuds that for both men, they were coming off respective world title reigns on the two different brands, and so this is their come down feud from being world champion. I like it because Randy Orton to me was a kind of underrated wrestler this year, in that he might be a legend, but who knew that he still had in him that main event heel that he brought when he had his Drew McIntyre feud. And Bray Wyatt kind of needed some repackaging. I like the character, but I think it needed some work. I think Alexa has been a great addition to that act. Which way do you see this going, though, Doug? Because this is one of these, you got guys coming off losses, so who needs the win more here?
That's what I was going to say. Who does need this win more? I'm really not sure. I think I think the Fiend has needed rehab since like the Saudi Arabia loss a while back. The Fiend should be more. I mean, the Fiend should be their Undertaker now. They should build the Fiend like that and keep this mystery and mystique about him and get some wins with the Fiend. Bray Wyatt can lose, but the Fiend can't. And I think we're like, I'm looking at the list here. It has the Fiend, Bray Wyatt. Who's Orton wrestling? It's going to be the Fiend. So,
and I think at this point, Randy Orton has his status sealed. I know he's done the job this year to help like get Drew to that next level of credibility. He loses nothing, and Bray Wyatt has more to gain. Randy Orton's a future Hall of Famer whenever he decides to hang it up, no matter what. And I think that Bray Wyatt is the one that needs to be kept strong for whatever bigger plans they have for him. Because Randy could go away for a while and do the whole semi-retire vacation that wrestlers of his vintage seem to do. Maybe I'm fantasy booking here, but I'd like to see the Fiend win this one. I think the Fiend will win this one.
Yeah. We'll see.
You going Fiend?
Oh yeah, Fiend.
That brings us to the title matches. Do you want to go WWE or Universal Championship first?
Let's go WWE.
Drew McIntyre, your WWE champion, is taking on AJ Styles. This is, Team Raw. They earned a clean sweep of Team SmackDown at the men's elimination match at Survivor Series. So, the participants that were rewarded with a path to earning a title shot. And 2 wins later, this is where AJ Styles comes in as your next challenger. A former champion himself. I think this has all the makings of potentially being match of the night, Doug.
Yeah, you've got former champion going against champion. I don't think Drew loses. I think AJ makes him look great. I think this is a filler to lead into Royal Rumble for and Drew's next opponent that comes out of Royal Rumble. But and whatever storylines that we fire up heading towards WrestleMania. But I think AJ will put on a phenomenal, no pun intended, show, but won't get the pin. It will be Drew.
The old saying about, the cliche, AJ Styles could have a good match with a broomstick kind of thing. He could, even at his age, not necessarily what many athletes would be considered their prime. He still manages to always put on amazing performances. And I think it's good for Drew because he has had some really good showings against Roman Reigns, doing that big man style that they did at Survivor Series. His feud with Randy Orton was solid, working that WWE main event style. AJ Styles, though, is a different kind of challenger, a different kind of wrestler, and I think it will be good to show to the WWE universe what more that a Drew McIntyre can do other than wrestle the style of a Randy Orton or the big man style of a Roman Reigns. He's going to have to put his working boots on because AJ Styles is going to make him work. But we know, because we've seen it in NXT and elsewhere, that Drew McIntyre can pretty much hang with any kind of style. I just don't know that on the main roster we've seen him wrestle someone who is aerial and as quick and movement as what an AJ Styles is. So I'll be interested really to see what Drew brings to this, how he changes his style to accommodate for Styles.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking at the matchup and I'm like, this is good. This is something we haven't seen. I'm thinking, the closest to this we've seen with Drew would probably be his NXT when he won the NXT championship and then immediately had to vacate because of his injury. No, he lost. That's right. He lost.
Andrade won.
Andrade, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, and that match was, one of the matches of that year. And Drew was definitely holding his own, wrestling in that style. AJ's going to make him wrestle that style. And I don't think main event roster Drew McIntyre, main event level Drew McIntyre, we haven't seen that guy yet. And so this is probably the match I'm most looking forward to. Yeah. But like you, credible as AJ Styles is, it's just Drew just got that belt back. I don't think that it would be his time to lose to somebody who's, in his 40s, has had the belt a couple times, doesn't need it. So it's got to be Drew for me too. Which leads us to a very, in my mind, similar situation in your Universal Champion. We have routinely mentioned on our program the last few weeks how well Roman Reigns is doing in his heel persona as the Universal Champion. I love Kevin Owens. He is a great heel. He's a great face. He's a great emoter. He really brings you in with his, believability when he speaks. So I've loved the way he's stood up to the big bully, the tribal chief. It's been fantastic, but there's just no way that a Kevin Owens, as good as the match could be, is going to take out Roman Reigns right now. So that's one of the reasons why earlier I had, in my mind think, okay, Nia Jax and Shayna is probably one of the few, other than maybe Sammy to Big E, one of the few titles that I think are truly in jeopardy here. Because there's no way with these two main events, they're probably going to be two of the better main events that we've had on WWE TV in a pay-per-view in a while. I just don't see either of these men losing.
Tribal Chief, man. Tribal Chief picks up the win here. I see that happening. Yeah.
Do you see both Roman and Drew holding on through Mania?
I do.
Mania?
I do, because I think Reigns holds on to Mania and through Mania, because I think the ultimate opponent for Reigns is The Rock. And it's not going to happen at this WrestleMania. So you can do some really great long-term storytelling by having this tribal chief just go through and start destroying opponent after opponent and build and I'm fantasy booking now.
As you fantasy book, I'm fantasy booking too, and I'm thinking, I had sort of thought of of Roman holding that belt to Mania and a big match at Mania, but a Rock Roman match doesn't need the belt. So now I'm thinking in my mind, like, you could have an elimination chamber, which, comes up before Mania, where someone like a Roman Reigns can lose without losing and move that title to a different feud, because if Rock comes in, there's always a good chance that Rock goes over, and Rock's not going to spend time on the main roster as your, champion.
True.
But there's a lot of ways they could go with it. I foresee no reason to think of anyone else right now interfering with the world title reigns.
Scott, there it is.
That's
There
it.
it is. That's it right there. Who really sits at the head of that Samoan dynasty table?
Yeah, and that is a story that
too.
and that is a story that can take place with or without that world title, because that seat is about that family and not necessarily about the championship. But for right now, we're in agreement. Kevin Owens doesn't stand a prayer next Sunday.
Yeah, poor K. Yeah, no, not poor K. I mean, KO will bounce back. I mean,
yeah, I hope that this actually, by he and AJ both being in the main event, are good signs to me, because both of these guys have been kind of underutilized the last few months. So maybe even in losses, which we both expect that that's what's going to happen here, is that we're going to move forward with these guys, hopefully give them something more to do
right.
than they have been doing, since they are obviously more than just good fodder for enhancing our world champions. But that is exactly what they're going to do next Sunday, and they're going to do it well. It should be a good show on paper. Doug, it looks like you and I disagreed on one match.
Yeah, I know.
So that is TLC preview, folks. We normally do a review afterwards, but this is taking place like 5 days before Christmas, and we're going to take some time off, a couple of weeks, but we'll get into our schedule here in a little bit. But so, yeah, enjoy the show, and let us know what you think. We'll still be active on our social media channel, but for now, that is the preview, Doug, unless you have anything else to say about TLC.
That's it for me, man. Let's hit to this big finish, and you can tell me what I need to catch up on this week, because the one wrestling show I was able to watch this week, I fell asleep halfway through. I haven't finished it yet.
This is why we need to give this, a break on our show. We need to give Doug some time to catch up on some things.
I'm hoping some time off from work will equal some time I can catch up on wrestling. So that's what I'm looking forward to this holiday.
Let's hope Santa brings that to you, Doug. It was a good week. Embarrassment of the week. I'll start there first. I sometimes like to get that out of the way. Did you see any of Dynamite at all?
I saw a little bit of Dynamite. I don't even remember when I fell asleep with Dynamite.
Well, I'm going to take a guess that if you weren't already sleepy, you would have definitely fallen asleep during the segment with Shaq. Unfortunately,
no, I didn't see that. No.
Shaq, this is apparently a thing. We thought that there was a good chance they'd be dropping it, as they had the Mike Tyson thing, and that that WWE had done for years with Big Show and Shaq, always teasing it for Mania, never actually happening. Well, Brandy Rhodes, who bless her, did a great job of carrying the weight of this segment. Had a one-on-one interview type situation with Shaq, and she ended up throwing water in his face after he said some insulting things, but the way he said them were just, I guess we could just say, without passion, not much on the acting chops, and it just made me cringe. In that, I know Cody is good, but can Cody carry this? I know they're getting attention from it. It was in the sports pages the next day about Shaq's involvement, where this may be headed. We talked before in our special Celebrities in Wrestling program that we did as a topic on here, that the reason behind it is to get outsiders' eyes on the product. It very well may work, and from a business sense, maybe it's smart, but from a wrestling sense of, am I looking forward to watching a beyond middle-aged non-wrestler like Shaq have a feud with Cody Rhodes? I am not.
Man, no. I mean, no.
And he come in and blow me away like a Pat McAfee and was like, okay, wow, that was pretty good. But no, when you see it, when you catch up, Doug, you will see what I'm talking about. It was as monotone and low energy as it's. If this portends at all to what he's going to be like in the ring, it's going to be a cluster.
No, I mean, McAfee made me a believer, but McAfee is an exception to the celebrity cameos rule in wrestling.
That's true. Absolutely true. Shaq, we'll see, but if the backstage promo was anything to say what's going to happen once we're in the ring, we're in for some trouble.
Awesome.
Match of the week. I'll go match of the week next. For me, there was a lot of good matches this week that I really liked. We obviously covered, the pay-per-view the NXT War Games pay-per-view. So that women's match would be right up there. But if I take that one out to give something that we haven't already talked about, I'm going to go for a promotion that doesn't, get a lot of spotlight on here, and that is Major League Wrestling, who returned, I'd say 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, and this might be their 4th episode now. And much like Ring of Honor did when they came back and started doing their pure title tournament, what the MLW has been doing is they've been doing their Opera Cup tournament. The Opera Cup is a title that's origins based all the way back to the early 1900s, and many a famous wrestler from that era, the early era, the Hackenschmidts, those groups of the early guys wrestled for this. And the last one to actually win it in its original incarnation was the father of Stu Hart. So this has been in the Hart family dynasty. So when they first brought the Opera Cup back, Davey Boy Smith won it. Davey Boy Smith Jr., I should point out. So he was in the tournament this year. He's already been eliminated. They're into the semifinals now, and the semifinals match this week was Low Key versus Richard Holiday, and Low Key won the belt, and it was not won the belt, won the semifinal matchup. My match of the week. The way it's looking right now, there's one more semifinal match to take place, and that's Filthy Tom Lawler versus ACH. And I am hoping for an ACH low-key final for the Opera Cup, because that would be pure fire. And that's something that I would love to see. ACH was one who only had a cup of coffee in NXT before he started rubbing people the wrong way. But he is incredibly talented. And, of course, low-key has always been one of those that could bring it in the ring, despite the fact that he never seemed to be able to get along backstage with anybody. But I hope that those two collide. But Richard Holiday is an up-and-comer who I expect will be on WWE or AEW at some point in time. So go out of your way to see this match if you can. There's many ways to find it. Their YouTube channel is just one of those. But that was my match of the week. And I will then end with my performer of the week, Doug. Since you didn't see much of anything, you'll appreciate this one. Also giving some love to some of the federations we maybe do not talk about so much. But on the National Wrestling Alliance has also returned. They are not running their Power show that they had pre-pandemic, but they're calling this one NWA Shockwave. And this past week, my performer of the week was Tony Khan. Tony Khan, the impresario of AEW. I always worry when the guys who actually have the money put themselves on screen because I'm afraid they get a little too enamored with it and then make the show about them. Tony has been really good as somebody who was very content to stay behind the scenes and not take the spotlight from the talent. However, this week, because of the angle that they have been running, they did a great bit where I'm saying NWA Shockwave. It was on Impact Wrestling this past week because the crossover that's happening right now with AEW and Impact Wrestling. Tony Khan did a commercial. He paid, that's the way they made it look, for airtime on Impact Television in order to talk about everything that was going to be happening on Dynamite the next night. Since you basically, you've stolen our champion, I'm using my money to take your airtime. And it was Tony Khan himself in front of an old school looking like Mid-Atlantic style like backdrop, and Tony Schiavone there pretty much interviewing him on everything that was happening the next night on AEW Dynamite. I thought it was Scott saw it. It was really, really, really good. And it's obviously great exposure for Impact, which, is at best the number 3 promotion in the country. But they do have national cable television. And so the number 2 and number 3 coming together is exciting when you're taking on the number 1. And the way that they're doing it right now has been great. And Tony Khan played his role perfectly. I could obviously give this to Kenny Omega or Don Callis, who are holding their own as well. But Tony's not someone who usually puts the camera on himself. And when he decided to do so, he did so in a way that it was about his money and his ownership and his show. And they just made it count when they pulled that card. And I really thought it was good. And I'm glad, Scott, I'm glad you saw it and agree. But I'm eager to see where this goes. I think this is a topic, Doug, that when we do reconvene in the new year, we're going to take on a little bit deeper. When we come back in January, we're going to talk a little bit more about this crossover, as it were, between the number 2 and number 3 promotions, and some of the dream matches and other things that could possibly come out of it. Because it's a whole show in and of itself to talk about this one, Doug.
And I don't know, my guys over on Dynamite are open to working with anyone. So that door is swung wide open. You mentioned NWA. They already have those NWA alliances there, and now they're moving into Impact territory. And I think it's just a matter of time before, well, we have the Tokyo Dome, we have Wrestle Kingdom coming up. So and Jon Moxley is a champion in New Japan. So
I love it. I really think it's a refreshing thing to see the universe of professional wrestling acknowledge the other guys. And there's no elephant in the room. Is the big gorilla is the big gorilla. WWE doesn't have to acknowledge anybody else if they don't want to. But the fact that even the number 2 decides that, yeah, it's probably worth our while to work with these other folks and give these different flavors and different platforms to these other individuals, it only benefits everyone. And it gets marks like us excited when we see, like, oh, it's Thunder Rosa. Man, oh, man, that was a great match. I loved seeing Kenny Omega show up on Impact. It was fantastic, and I can't wait to see where they go. I look forward to you and I getting deeper into this and really looking at those rosters and seeing what else might happen, which is something we'll do in the new year. But, yeah, kudos. That is it. That's the 1, 2, 3, Doug.
Cool. Kevin, what's coming up? When are we coming back? Is it the first part of January?
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about our upcoming schedule, folks. 2020 is coming to a close. So thank you for spending even whatever time you've managed on a Sunday evening with us. We decided, Doug came to me with this idea. We decided to kick this show off right before April, right around the time that everyone goes into lockdown. We decided, it was almost immediately after we started doing this show. It was only weeks before the pandemic really took hold, and it completely changed the landscape of professional wrestling. But it's given us a nice outlet to talk to you all about a passion that we have and that you have, or you wouldn't be watching this. And so we do. We appreciate you tuning in, and we hope you have a wonderful holiday off the next couple of weeks. We will be back, as I said, in January. We have shows that we already have planned, like the talking a little bit about the crossover between Impact and the crossover, that you're seeing across other wrestling promotions. That we want to dig into that later on in January. But our very next time on your all's phones or computer screens is January 3rd, when Doug and I come back post New Year's with a special awards edition of the Two Bros Wrestling Show. So we'll be promoting that a little bit over on our social channels. You can see, some of the things we're going to be talking about, but we're talking match of the year, male performer of the year, our female performer of the year, who we thought had the breakout year, what, rookie or guy who took it to that next level. We're going to discuss all these things. So you all be thinking that too. We want to have this conversation with you all as well. So join us January 3rd when we come back for our special Two Bros Wrestling Show Awards Edition, as we look back again at what we all can agree was the greatest year in the history of mankind.
The greatest history of history.
That's why we want to relive it already with you.
So until next year, everybody, be safe. Be kind to each other. Take care of everybody in your circles, in your spheres, in your inner circles. Have a great holiday season, and we'll see you next year. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching.